Thank you all so very much. My name is Brad Carlin. I'm a senior consultant for TRG Arts, and I'm based in hot and sunny Austin, Texas. But I am a part of TRG Arts UK and Europe team. And so I spend about half of my day, and sometimes in the very early half of my day, working with clients and organizations all throughout the UK. Today, and for part of the day, but I just want him to be able to introduce himself and say hi, is my partner in this collaboration that we have with City of Culture in Coventry 2021 is David Brownlee. David, say hello.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm David Brownlee. I'm Director of International Strategy for TRG Arts. I'm the one with the English accent and with the less well-formed beard.
Trade-offs. So we're here. We're gathered here today to learn with each other over these next few weeks. But this is all made possible by our partners at the City of Culture in Coventry for 2021, who have made it possible for TRG to engage with you all and to create these opportunities for you all to learn and to connect. I see Billy here, so who's working on that team. So hi, Billy, thank you. And there are others on the City of Culture team who will be joining us along the way. So we will get to other introductions in a moment, but what kind of Zoom webinar would it be if I didn't make you look at PowerPoint? So I'm going to satisfy and scratch that itch for you all and share some PowerPoint with you. There we go. Okay, so as you know, we'll have these gatherings every couple of weeks, and each session we've got an hour with each other this afternoon to talk about a topic each time. And today the topic is the very perfect first date, particularly when we're talking about audiences and patrons or attendees to cultural events. Here's how I think we would like to work in our Zoom room together. I know in this age, this is you're all probably experts and quite familiar with Zoom now, more so than you ever thought you would be, or maybe than you ever wanted to be. But just to help orient you, I think you have the opportunity, if you click participants over on the right-hand side, there's a little button there, you can raise your hand. That can help get my attention if like doing this doesn't seem to work. You're in control of your mic, so you can mute yourself if you need to, or unmute yourself if you need to speak. Most of you have your video on, which is great. You can turn it off if you need to, but we would love to see you as much as possible. We will use the chat feature throughout, so just so you can see the chat button there, I'll sort of ask for some questions and participation. You can send them to the entire group in those settings, but if you have questions or things you want to raise anonymously, you can private chat them to me directly. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a little welcome and introductions. I am going to share some data with you. There will be charts and graphs. Consider yourself forewarned. We're going to walk through some best practices and a case study around initial relationships, those first meetings, those oh so important first meetings between our organizations and our patrons and audience members. We'll have a chance for some questions and conversations throughout, but we'll work to reserve time at the end especially. And we'll talk about what the next session is going to look like at the very end. But first, spoiler alert, this is my second to last slide that I'm letting you see right now. So I'm letting you see the very end as some indication about where I'd like to go by the end of the day, and some expectation on you by the end of our hour together today that I may ask you, looking for one thing, one action, one concept, one strategy that we talk about that you feel like eventually, when you can and when you are, that you'll be able to bring back to your organization, or bring to your work, or will bring to your practice, however that feels right. But so we are looking for actionable takeaways at the end of the day today. So I will ask this of you at the end of the presentation. So there's another warning. Okay, real quick. Some of you may know about TRG Arts. Some of you may not, so real quick. We are based in Colorado. We do have a UK team. As I mentioned, there's about 40 of us throughout the globe, been around for about a quarter of a century and have done work in multiple continents and thousands of organizations, focusing on data-driven consulting and working with arts and cultural organizations to build loyalty, to build sustainable patron growth and revenue growth within those organizations. Me personally, you can see me in the back there, in the back row, wearing different glasses, but having the beard's pretty similar, but different glasses from that photo. I come from the performing arts world. I spent about 12 years in the trenches working at arts and cultural organizations, everything from theater management to general management and executive leadership and fundraising at a number of organizations throughout the United States, and most recently for a contemporary performance festival here in Austin, until joining the dark side and becoming a consultant. But I feel in that time I've worn just about every hat, and I have sat in the seats of the box office to marketing to fixing leaky toilets in a venue to hanging lights to selling tickets to raising money and meeting with government officials. And so I feel like I'm bringing all of that that American experience to and what I'm learning about the UK market and UK clients and UK business models in my work with TRG. That is a little bit about me. So your turn. Here's how I'd like to do, and this is a smaller group, so we could actually probably just do this round robin fairly quickly. So first, if you look at yourself in your little Zoom box there and put your cursor over the Zoom box, you'll see another box that has 3 dots in it in the top right. You can click on that, give you a bunch of options, one of which is rename. And what I may ask is maybe just put your first name and the organization or cause that you're affiliated with, or the business that you're affiliated with, so it can help just remind each other who we are and where we're from. And then maybe instead, I'll give you a moment to do that, and then I may just call on you individually just to tell us who you're with specifically, and then what your role is there ordinarily when not in a furloughed situation, so that we can get a sense of who's in the room and the different kinds of roles and the different kinds of entities that we are in partnership with. So on my screen, Kat, you're first. Would you mind taking yourself off mute, saying hi, letting us know what you do?
Hi, so yeah, I'm Kat. I work for West Midlands Police. I'm on the City of Culture project team that's embedded kind of into the trust. I have the longest role title ever. I'm the community engagement, partnership working, problem solving and evaluation lead for, for our team. So, you know, I only do little things, it's just not massive things.
Yeah, wow, that's I've never heard a title that long or grand or all-encompassing. That's man, hats off to you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. What an interesting perspective you're going to bring. So please help. Some of this is going to maybe feel where it can intersect with your work in your wheelhouse, and some of it is going to feel different. And just feel free to flag things, to say, hey, wait, what do you mean by this, or I don't understand this, or can you help me relate this to something that you're doing? I'm happy to help draw those connections.
Brill, thank you. Just to contextualise, don't ask why I work for the police now, but my degree was in set design, and
amazing. Okay.
I ran performing arts workshops in schools and that sort of thing. So that is my background. So hopefully there'll be a lovely kind of direct line through. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Kat. Nice to meet you. Carrie, you're next on my Brady Bunch screen here.
Okay, so I work for Culture Coventry, which is not the City of Culture Trust, but sometimes gets confused with that by people. We're a group of museums, so we're Herbert Art Gallery and Museum in Coventry, Coventry Transport Museum, and Lunt Roman Fort. So we've got those 3 different sites. My job is creative media and digital manager. But my specialism is vocational learning, so using digital to engage young people.
Oh, great. Very cool. Good. Thank you, Carrie. Helen's next on my screen. Hiya, Helen.
Hi there. I'm Helen Cooper. I'm the librarian at King Henry VIII School in Coventry, and I've been the sort of trying to plan some events to support City of Culture. I am currently on furlough, so at the moment those plans are looking pretty ropey. But I thought I like to join into as many City of Culture things as possible, and we're hoping to do some live events. So I thought this could be useful.
Good. That's helpful context, Helen. Thank you so much. All right. Next, is it? I'm sorry. Is it Duna? Am I saying that right? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, that was a typo. It's Donna.
Okay. Sorry about that, Donna.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, hi. I work for the Warwickshire Wildlife Trust. We're a local environmental and wildlife charity in Coventry, and we're doing some work with the City of Culture 2021. So my role at the trust is membership services manager. So we're a membership supported organisation. I look after 24,000 members.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Donna. I won't call you Duna. All right. Next on the docket, is it Emily?
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right.
So I'm here for sort of two organisations. The first one is I work part-time for Live and Local, who are a rural touring scheme, which basically we work across 8 counties. We're the biggest one in the UK, and we put events out, like several hundred a year, to places that have got a population of less than 20,000 people. And then the other organisation that I have a lot to do with, which I think people here will be more familiar with probably, is Positive Images Festival. So I'm my other part-time job is as a freelance poet. So that's how my involvement with Positive Images, and we actually work in Coventry in areas where we try and get free events and get people more encouraged in attending arts that they might not have been able to or wanting to otherwise.
Great. And is it your birthday, Emily?
I realised this was funny until I had a meeting, and I realised it just now it shows up on the camera. It was my birthday a couple of days ago, and as we're not in the office, I am working from home, we thought it'd be hilarious to have a banner up for my works meetings, which is less hilarious when you join something and nobody knows you. But it was too late. I was committed by the time I turned the video on to start standing on the shelf there and taking it off. So
no worries. Well, happy belated birthday.
Thank you. It's probably somebody's birthday somewhere, right?
Sure,
so.
Somebody somewhere, always. Yeah. Thank you. Billy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Billy. I'm the head of ticketing at Coventry City Culture Trust. About 3 weeks under the desk, and I haven't met anybody at the trust yet, so it's quite a weird start to a new job. But I was previously working at Manchester International Festival up north, but I've come back to Coventry, and I'm glad to see Helen in the room. I was at King Henry VIII School 20 years ago. So.
What's your surname, Billy?
Partridge.
I'll look
me up.
Yeah.
I just want to add that although the City of Culture Trust are partnering with TRG Arts on this series of events, I'm not delivering the event. I'm definitely looking forward to participating. So thank you everyone for coming.
Yeah, thanks, Billy. Emma.
Hi everyone, I'm Emma Burks. I'm from the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust, and I'm the Volunteers, Communities and Access Officer there. So I run the volunteering programme, that includes internships and work experience programmes as well. And then part of the community side is to make sure that our collections or properties are accessible as possible to different groups. So it might be people with autism or just different local community groups within the area. And then part of my role is to expand the community, so working with different towns or like Coventry and other places nearby. So hopefully I'll be able to say hello to some people and improve those opportunities as well. But I've been on furlough for about 9-10 weeks. So it's getting to that odd point.
Yeah.
This is a great opportunity just to keep in and see what's happening in the sector, really.
Great. Thank you, Emma. And Joshua, thanks for joining us. We're just sort of going around, as you probably figured out, doing just a quick intro of your role, the company or organization that you're with. If you would like, in that top right-hand box there, when you get a chance, you can rename yourself in Zoom. When you click on yourself and then that box with 3 dots in it, you can rename yourself, and that's what other folks have done. Yeah, you can just give us your first name and your organization. That way we can all remember. What do you do? What's your role?
I'm a freelance animator and designer.
Oh, cool.
And I'm doing some work with City of Culture, and I'm looking to think about ways to kind of move into kind of social enterprise and keep culture going and learning over the next couple of years. So
great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome, welcome. All right, so I'm going to dive in. A really diverse set of experiences and backgrounds and expertise in the room. And of course, I want to make sure that I want to make sure that we can make this relevant and valuable to you and where you are in your work. And so I hope you don't feel like it's bait and switch, but we're not here to actually talk about like romantic dating. What we're actually here to talk about, what that all kind of translates to, is we're working towards this much bigger, broader notion of retention and loyalty, which I think if you can stick your claws into those ideas throughout this session and be thinking about those terms and what it may mean in your worlds, in your realm, in your work, whether it's membership, whether it's a particular community or constituency within a school or within a community itself, Kat, or folks that you serve within a cultural institution. The point here is we're going to lean into the importance and value of focusing on loyalty and building loyalty with the communities that we serve and the communities that we engage with. That will be largely a story told through the lens of the performing arts. So just know that that will be our orientation, but I will continue to look for ways to bring it back up. And so the very tactical things we may be talking about will have a performing arts orientation, but I believe there are examples and ways in which we can think about the tactics and ideas that we'll propose that you can apply and translate into the work that you're doing. So, in chat, my first sort of broad question to you all, and again, broadly, right? How do we know if a first date is successful? And if you've got a thought, just pop it into the chat for everybody so we can kind of quickly popcorn what folks think when asked this kind of silly question. I can see these. Yep, good. Helen, yeah. Your date tells you, yeah, you get some feedback, you get direct feedback. You would want to have a second date or more, right? Yep, good, right? So good, that's right. That's how we'll know. You get this, you enjoyed yourself. Oh, it's fun for you. Okay, good, yeah. Oh, they bring a friend along next time. That would be fun. Takes all kinds. Good. A sense of excitement. Good. Yes. All right. All of that. Good. Well, you're exactly right. And for our main purpose today, I think there's elements of all of that we want to instill in our relationships with patrons in this case, with supporters or community members. And that we want to maintain it, right? If we are having something exciting, if we're enjoying ourselves and we're enjoying time with other people, it's something we will want to continue and do again. So we're going to start with data. We're a data-driven consulting firm. This is what we do. This is what we specialize in. And so I warned you there would be charts and graphs. But before we get there, I want to walk through some definitions because we may not all be speaking the same language necessarily, right? So for our purposes, when I talk about patrons, we're just talking about a person that interacts with the organization and for whom you're collecting contact information. When I refer to single ticket buyers, in our case, we're talking about folks who buy one or several for an event but they're kind of buying them at individual points or individual transactions. They're not necessarily buying them all together. Think of these as individual interactions or engagements they may have with your organization or with your group. Multi-buyers are buying multiple things or having multiple experiences, but are doing it in a single transaction. Subscribers are a fixed package, a fixed seat. It's sort of served up to them. It's the example of like a pre-fee menu at a restaurant. New to file, they're brand new in the database in a given year. So these are folks who you have not had a previous relationship with. If they're an existing patron, you have had a previous relationship with them at least once. And attrition, we just mean those who become inactive through the course of looking at that, right? So we can have an interaction and then someone either continues an interaction or they discontinue that, in which case they have attrited. So we've studied this really closely. And we studied 5 years of data from 110 arts organizations across multiple genres. There were 15 million transactions in the data set that we studied. And we focused particularly on single ticket buyers. So folks who are buying kind of randomly and sporadically to attend particular arts events and wanted to understand their behavior a bit more. And so when we think of them, so think about, let's just think there's 15 million transactions, and that's way too much to hold in our brain. So let's think about 10, right? If we were to think about 10 single ticket buyers, what we learned is that 65% of them were new to file. They were new. 35% of them were existing. And what we hear, at least in our worlds of arts and culture in particular, performing arts and visual arts, we hear all the time the pressure of, I gotta find new audiences, new. I need new audiences. We're under all this pressure. And what we found in the data is that actually our sector, our field is actually pretty damn good at finding new to file. We're bringing in new people, more than half, nearly 2/3 of all the people who are buying tickets and attending events are new to our databases, are new to our organization. And only a little more than 1/3 of them have had any kind of previous relationship with us. Which was really interesting to us and I think is counterintuitive. Now, oftentimes folks say, I need to find new audiences. What they mean is are different audiences. I need to find audiences that may look differently, behave differently, come from different communities, which is that's a separate conversation, right? That is important as well, but but understanding the difference between new and different, I think is an important distinction when we're thinking about who is engaging with the work that we're doing. So the question is, are they coming back, right? Let's keep those 10 folks in our brain, roughly, almost 7 of them are brand new. 3 of them have engaged at least once before. And what we found is of that 7 or so that are new to file, 73% of them don't ever come back. They come once and then we lose them. They're gone. Of the existing folks who have already been there at least once, we only lose about 1/3 of them. Right, so this is, and then overall what we tend to see is that, overall we're losing about 2/3 of our single ticket buyers, like when you combine these audiences. But when we think about who's new, that nearly 3/4 of them we will never see again. We work so hard to engage them, to find them, to invite them, to bring them into the work that we're doing, and then 7 out of 10 won't come back. Whereas if we can get them to come back at least once, the likelihood that they will continue to come nearly doubles. When we think about UK data specifically, and this is just from 2018, we looked at hundreds of thousands of transactions across the United Kingdom, and in 2018, who did we actually bring back in 2019? We lost 67% of those folks who purchased in 2018 did not come back in 2019, and we only kept about 1/3. This is average. This lines up with averages that we had seen in years before. Now, when we think about those folks in the blue piece of the pie, those folks that we did retain, we divide them into chunks, into segments, based on how recent and how frequently they attend. And you can see them down here. I won't go into a lot of detail, but basically new customers are pretty straightforward. All the way up to super active means they have in their history, they've been 10 or more times, right? And stale and lapsed means they had an engagement, They then were absent for a while and then came back. We're particularly interested in this concept of first dates and of retention and of loyalty. We're mainly talking about what happens here in these segments. And I want to point you to the difference between a retention rate of a new customer versus the retention rate of someone who has only been just once before. How if we can make that new customer come back just one more time, their retention rate nearly triples. It just takes 2 experiences in order to start to really see the bonds of loyalty. And then as they engage deeper and deeper and deeper, you see those retention rates go up all the way up to our super actives, to where basically we're retaining 80% of our most active and of our most loyal constituents and patrons. So next chat question for you all. So what, Brad? Why do I care if patrons return if we're so good at being able to find new ones? What do you think? Right on, Billy. Yeah, it's expensive to find those new ones, both in money and in energy. Yep. That's right. Right again. It's as, I know Billy hasn't seen my deck, but it's as if he knows what the next slide is. Yeah, right, Josh. Yeah, good. Right? Something about their experience, you've connected with them. Oh, interesting, Helen. Yeah, maybe there's dissatisfaction. Maybe people haven't had a good experience, which is interesting. You know, part of what we find often is that just like we aren't good at inviting them back. They're not being invited back, right? They may have had a nice time, but we just don't ever really think about how to invite them to a second date. It's like we get scared. Like we think they're gonna call, but they're waiting for us to call. Keep educating and informing people. They keep coming back. We can create a relationship. Yeah. Yeah. Good. So your instincts are all right on. Here is a lot of data. So this is more UK data. Thinking about those segments we saw on the slide just a couple slides before, looking at lifetime value. And we're looking at lifetime value and annual spend per patron. And you can see the difference, right? Just look at new customers and once before, right? As I move down that table, I'm spending more and more. The more I come, with each time, with the more I engage, I spend and I invest more. And because I'm coming more often, my lifetime value is increasing. And so what we see here is that a super active, for example, our most loyal patron, they're worth 4 times more. Their value, their lifetime value is 18 times more, but they are with us 4 times longer than a new customer. And it would take 5 new customers to replace the impact of just 1 loyal customer to the organization. So the reason we care about this is we will always need new customers. We will always need new patrons and new folks to engage with. We always want to be filling that pipeline and inviting folks in, but it's expensive, it's hard work, it's difficult. If we can do a really good job of engaging and retaining our loyal and committed audiences and communities, that is a stable foundation for us to establish our organizations, our events, our activities, to know I have a base of support that I can count on reliably, that it can grow and deepen over time. And from there, I can build and to invite new folks in. What does this data look like in the midst of a pandemic? This underscores just how important loyalty is. So this is data that we're collecting from hundreds of organizations across the United Kingdom about who is buying tickets now in these times to cultural events. And even though we know overall investment in arts and cultural events right now is down about 92% from where it was at this point last year, there are folks still buying and still investing. And those who are buying and committing and putting their money into arts and culture right now, saying that I will come back, I will attend, when you are open, I will, it's our most loyal patrons. 2/3 of them are the ones who are investing right now. And so if you were to imagine how we get through, part of how we can get through really tough and challenging and difficult times is to have that loyal base of support that we can count on. When it becomes really difficult for us to attract new buyers right now, difficult to market, difficult to communicate, difficult to invest in those ways, and yet our loyalists are at least supporting our organizations in ways that allow us to have cash coming in the door. Okay. Enough charts and graphs and just a little like heartwarming, charming picture of two human beings holding hands, right? Like this, hopefully I've hammered this point home enough, right? Loyalty is the pathway to sustainability. We love the ones we're with. And if we focus on retention, we make it a priority in our organizations, our organizations, our entities, our projects will become more sustainable and more viable. It is not dependent. It isn't the only thing we should focus on, but this is how we can be sustainable. So we think, and I would challenge you to sort of look at this stair step and think about what these boxes what they may look like within your work or your organization. But what we tend to find in arts and culture across the globe is that generally patrons follow a pretty similar path, and they go on this journey with us. And they start as prospects, and then they work their way up. They attend once, they come more than once, they start buying lots of things at once, they start committing to packages and donating, and then they become board members and investors and supporters and become deeply involved in our organizations. This process takes years and a lot of thoughtful, considered work. And our thought today is really this notion of where does the first date happen? It happens right here, right? What is the difference between that first purchase and getting that person to come back? And so that's where we're focusing on right now. So let's think about what happens before the date, right? Before the date, we already have a date. We already have a date set, time, place, event. We've already figured all of that out. We are going to have an interaction with a new patron. What are the things that we can be doing before that interaction takes place? Let's think back to the goals that you all, eloquently shared and thoughtfully shared at the beginning here about what would make it successful. What's the point, right? And for the most part the point is yes, to have a good time and to have an enjoyable experience, and to make sure that we get to do it again, that we get to reconnect, that we get to have and share those good experiences in the future. And so with that in mind, there's a few things that we're going to go into a bit more detail on. First is, we can't invite them to a second date if we don't have contact information. And that seems really simple. But more important than contact information within our organizations is having the permission to invite them to a second date. What we've learned is our organizations are actually pretty darn good at having collected the contact information, but what we're not so great at is having permission to then follow up after that date, to be able to invite them to the next date. We need to be able to manage that experience from beginning to end. This gets to making sure that that experience is wonderful from start to finish. We need to find ways and engage them and invite them in other ways to connect with our organizations or with our projects. And each patron will have a strategic next step about what's the right next step, right? We don't go from first date to marriage proposal. Some may, and that may work for some, but for most, that's not the path, right? We build our way up, right? So we want to be thoughtful about what this next ask is. The next ask is for a second date. The next ask is not to become, a co-signer on a mortgage on a house at some point, right? And then finally, we want to immediately ask them back, and we want to be generous in terms of how we invite them back. Okay, let's dig in a little more into some of these. Prioritize data permissions. Remember, if we don't have permission, we can't invite them back. When we look at data that we collect over arts and cultural organizations in the UK, ones that we work with just before we start working with them, here's what we tend to see. Within their database, they have permission to contact 35% of their database by mail only. They have 46% permission to contact by email only. And they only have 29% of their database where they are allowed to contact by both mail and email. If we can only talk to not even half of the database that we have, and in being able to invite them back, it's a challenge. We've already lost half of the folks in terms of the likelihood of being able to invite them back strategically and thoughtfully if we don't have permissions. If you take nothing else away from this session, I urge you to think strongly about the work that you're doing to collect permissions and contact permissions, thoughtfully, responsibly, legally, but put effort into it, put thought, put attention into how are we updating and collecting contact permissions. Our best practices show, and the reason why we focus on both of these, is that any one of those contact methods alone is not as successful as using multiple contact methods to engage with folks. You will be more successful if you are both mailing and emailing, and quite honestly, in some cases, phone, but that's not always possible for all organizations. But at the very least, you need multiple channels to be successful in inviting someone back. You will not be as successful if I only can talk to someone over email or if I can only talk to them through the post. We can start setting expectations and start thinking about retention before the show, and we can do this by how we prepare folks, or before the event, before the experience, before the engagement, however, whatever form it takes. We can start setting the stage for retention ahead of time by managing their expectations, by talking to folks directly, by helping them understand that maybe if they have tickets to an in-demand event, letting them know how special and important they are. Oh my gosh, you have tickets to a sold-out event. There is demand for this. You have made the right choice. Letting them know if they are new, and again, we're talking about new to file. A lot of you are doing this already for organizations, and you probably see these if you're attending concerts or performances, you get emails like this. But segmenting these to talk to new to file customers differently than you talk to your existing customers. We need to talk to our new to file like they're new. We need to talk to them like we know them, because we know that they're new. We're paying attention. And so we can let them know, here's what you need to know about attending. Here's where you can eat. Here's where you can park. Here's what attire needs to be like. Here's what we're going to do in case of bad weather, right? Let them know that you're thinking of them and their experience ahead of time, and that you recognize that this may be the first time that they're engaging with you. All right, during the date. We need to acknowledge and welcome. Right, if we can. It's that old, we don't get a second chance for that first impression. So if we can, we need to find ways to flag, to identify, to mark new to file for our welcome desk, for whoever is at reception, for box office, or whoever's at registration. How do we somehow mark and communicate to teams to say who is new? And how do we make sure that we specifically welcome them? Thank you, welcome. I'm so glad this is your first time, right? If we're not sure, can we ask, have you been with us before? Welcome back. No, welcome. We're so glad that you've decided to join us. Let's explicitly acknowledge that we know, and we're paying attention. We know who you are. Other strategies we've seen work well, random sampling of new to file patrons for seat visits, right? If you're at a seated event and you have new to file patrons or new folks who are maybe wandering around, or they're at a museum or an event, being able to walk up to them and check in with them individually. How is everything? Are you enjoying yourself? Did you find it okay? Was parking all right? Was entry good? Ticketing experience okay? Any feedback you have for us, right? Just making sure we do that little bit extra to learn about their experiences and to understand in advance any problems that they may have, right? One of you said, and I'm looking back, Helen talked about suggest dissatisfaction, right? As a reason why somebody may not be coming back. If we can identify that dissatisfaction right in the moment, if we can nip it in the bud right there, we've got a much better chance of actually getting them back than if we never asked and we didn't know and we couldn't fix it for them. Now, it may not be practical to talk to every new to file person this way, right? It certainly isn't. And I don't mean to say that we need to be doing this at the expense of engaging with our loyal patrons. That's important too. But for now, we're paying particular attention to how we are engaging with our new to file patrons. Let's look for opportunities to surprise and delight. Is there a little gift, a little thank you, a little tchotchke, a little something special that we give to folks that says, hey, I'm new and I appreciate you coming here. Here's a little something. Here's a little information about us. I see that you're new. Here's stuff that I want to give and share with you. We want to ask for their feedback. And we don't want to overdo it. Let's not intimidate folks. Let's not disrupt their overall experience. But let's make sure we're being attentive and friendly and helpful. We have to invest in the folks who are brand new. Yeah, Billy.
Sorry, just put myself off mute. It's just a thought. if you just go up to somebody in their seat, if it's a theatre or whatever, and tap them on the shoulder, isn't it a bit creepy to go, I know you're here your first time, so would it be a better approach to go, is it your first time here, to get them to volunteer that information? Yeah.
Yeah, you can. Or you can say, hey, by that point, you probably know them by name. Or you say, look, I see here on our records that this may be your first time. Is that right? Have you been with us? If you've been with us before, right? You can be transparent about to say, look, we're really interested in what our first time visitors are thinking and making sure that you're having a good time or that you're enjoying yourself. But yeah, let's not creep them out. You're right.
I guess it's also important to make sure you're not doing every touch point. So you don't want them having that at the box office and then at the seat and then at the bar and then on the way out.
That's right. That's the thing about not overdoing it, right? And being thoughtful about, and again, because for most of us, the vast majority of the folks are going to be brand new, right? We can't do this for everyone. We're just going to have to be kind of selective and strategic, that we're collecting information at box, we're collecting information at the bar, we're maybe collecting information at the lobby or in the seats. Yeah, but not from the same people. Good point. After the date, you've just had an incredible experience. You've prepped them for it. You've treated them well. And so afterwards, it's time to invite them back. And we want to invite them back with a very generous, very thoughtful offer. And we want to give them a very specific invitation back. Not, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could have dinner again sometime? Wouldn't it be great if we could have dinner again in a few weeks on this day and at this place? And I'll pay for half your dinner. so that's where the analogy falls short. But what we're offering here is, and what we strongly recommend, and we've tested this, is that we need to be really, really generous about that retention offer. If you're inviting them back to a paid event, it is well worth the investment to go really deep and really generous on that offer in order to get someone back. We've tested all different levels of offer in new to file retention schemes, and nothing works as good as basically a buy one get one free offer is what we tend to see across the board. And so here's an example of what Sheffield Theatres has done there. You can say, we hope you enjoyed it. We want to welcome you back. Here's a deadline. Here's a really exciting offer. We've also tested how important it is to just have an image on the front of this communication, whether it's an email, whether it's a postcard. Again, both work. If you can use both, it works best. Just an image, no text, just an image from the thing that they just saw, reminding them of the incredible experience or the event that they just attended. How can I remind you of that wonderful experience you just had? And then I'm going to invite you back to the next one. Here's what another one looks like, an example in the United States. A lot of the same strategy here, but I want to share with you how we know this works. So with this particular postcard, this was just on this postcard. They mailed 7,000 of these to folks who came, who were first-time attendees to this show. And they were able to bring back nearly 600 of them, took them up on the offer to come back to the next show, which is an 8.1% response rate, which is very high. I'll say that's high, right? I've cherry picked one that is high for this kind of offer, but the important point here is, and what I want to instill in you all, is to say, and what we tend to find with organizations that we're working with, they're not thinking about response rates. We may be inviting folks back, but we're not thinking about what offers and what communications are actually working. We're not doing this particular math to say, I sent out 7,000 pieces of communication. Of those people who received that piece of communication, 600 of them came back. That response rate was 8%. I can look at that 8% response rate and I can compare that to other pieces and other events and other offers that we're putting out there. And I can start to strategically understand which messages are landing better, which ones are resonating with my new visitors as opposed to other ones, right? We need to measure. We will measure what we manage, we will manage what we measure. Billy, you have an additional comment, or is your hand still up from before? I think I can, I can do that. Great, I got it. There we go. So let's say we invite them to a first date. We invite them to a second date and they don't take us up on that first offer. We're not going to give up. We had an awesome time. I want to spend more time with you. I'm not going to give up. So later on, what we may do is offer a slightly different message, and we would want to let folks know with similar strategy, we still want you to come back. Here's a different kind of offer. We don't go as deep on the second offer. We make it really clear. We don't get more desperate, you know, the more times we ask, but we do, again, reinforce with deadlines, reinforce with an inviting offer, and letting them know that we miss them, that it's been a while. We want to spend time together. We can even go all the way back and thinking about those segments, right? If we had a date with someone 2-3 years ago, and it would be really great to get them back. We think there's still something there. There's a spark there still, we know, if we could just uncover it. Here's what the Chicago Symphony did. They went back to segments who hadn't had, who purchased tickets or had engaged anywhere from 2 to 4 years ago, but not since. Sent only a 30% offer with a deadline. This one only had a 1.3% response rate. But again, 800 households who previously had not been engaged in 2 to 4 years. And the value of this, the value of their tickets, exceeds the cost of this mailing significantly. Like if you were to think about what is the cost of sending this out, the cost of sending this out was probably, and I'll have to translate, I'll have to do the currency conversions, right? But it's somewhere in the range of, you know, 10 pence on every pound, right? So we may be, the return on this, even though on a 1.3% response rate, is extraordinary. Just by inviting folks back who we know have a relationship with us, who have previously had some kind of interest in who we are, in what we do. So much more affordable than what we tend to invest in finding brand new folks who have never engaged with us before. Quickly here, wrapping up, getting towards the end, we'll look at a case study. So it's an organization we worked with in Ipswich, the New Wolsey, who implemented these practices whole cloth. So in their example, in 14-15, they had nearly 5,000 households make their very first visit to the New Wolsey, and their retention rate was even worse than what we see on average. It was 75% of those folks didn't return in that season or even the following season. They had a very leaky bucket, right? If you can imagine all that work you're doing to fill the bucket with water of folks attending and engaging with the work that you're doing, and you're losing 75% of it in the holes in your leaky bucket. So they're filling their leaky bucket by focusing on retention. So the way that they were going to grow was to continue to have new single ticket buyers, but if we can lower our attrition rate, if we can plug the holes in the leaky bucket, the water level in the bucket will grow overall. They did this throughout the organization comprehensively. It was both a process and across all departments. This isn't one person's responsibility. It's an investment and a commitment across the organization in order to achieve really strong results. They developed a loyalty pack, like a loyalty manual that they could give to internally within the organization to let everybody know and understand what was our strategy and our approach to attention and loyalty. It had really helpful tools in here about understanding segmentation and developing a pathway for each segmentation. So if I'm a single ticket buyer and I'm new to file here in the middle, the effort is the single ticket buyer retention. What is the important message? We want to get them back. What are the notes on how we are going to do that? What are the collateral items that we are going to communicate with? Who's responsible and what's the deadline? How is the organization going to break this down to say, we're going to bring people back and here is our strategy? And so we've got a plan for every type of patron and what their next step is, right? Some of these are ready to be reactivated. Some are ready to be sold something else. Some are ready to be upgraded, right? Depending on where they are on that staircase. But for our purposes, the new to file retention became really clear, and this was something that they could distribute within the organization. They provided training to the team, making sure that it wasn't, again, just one person's responsibility. Ideally, it was a team's effort to say, how can I orient this customer and this opportunity that I have to engage with a patron or a customer to be more loyal? What can I invite them to? How can I make sure that they stay connected? And so in just 2 years, their attrition rate went from 75% to 63%, slightly below average, right? Not earth-shattering in just 2 years, but they have continued this work and they have continued to lower their attrition rate. But that's 12 more people coming back each year out of every 100 that they didn't have before. Step by step, effort by effort, filling the leaky buckets. We've seen this play out throughout the organizations. It's a multi-year effort. It is real work. It takes real focus and consideration and commitment to it. But it's the returns. If you think back to that lifetime value slide we looked at early on, the returns on that and the why of that, first from a revenue standpoint, is pretty clear. But not only from a revenue standpoint, from a community building standpoint, from a being able to deepen relationships that you have with community, we can only do by extending and multiplying the interactions that we have with folks. Okay, I warned you. I told you. I gave you a heads up. There was a spoiler alert and everything. I've thrown a lot at you and you are all in very different places in terms of your roles and the work that you do. And I'll give you a minute or two to just reflect on this and then to throw one thing into chat that resonates with you, that you feel like there's some concept here, there's some practice that I think I may be able to apply to something that I do. Good, thanks, Carrie. Leaky bucket. Yes. Helen, you're speaking my language. That's how we build loyalty, right? Volume discounts. We will reward loyalty. If you're going to commit to us over multiple things, we honor and appreciate that, and we can show our appreciation in price, for sure. Yeah, multiple opportunities for feedback, Kat. You're exactly right. After the event, we want to know. We want to ask them, right? We're strong believers in the Net Promoter System, but whatever feels right for you to understand what's working and what's not working with folks. Yeah, Billy, you're exactly right. And that's a heavy lift, right? Nobody has ever been to a City of Culture in Coventry before because it's never happened before, right? So we're going to have, everybody is going to be new to file essentially. And how are we making sure that those who attend early on, perhaps in the events, are folks that we can continue to stay engaged with the whole year round? Yeah, don't give up on them. Thank you, Emma. Yep, exactly right. They have told us they are engaged, they are interested in what we do. We know for sure. We're not guessing. We're not casting a net and just hoping we catch a fish. We have fish in our database who we already know how to communicate with. We can directly invite them back. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, Josh, that's right. Let's invest in it. Let's let them know, hey, whatever barriers I can do to lower the barrier to get you to return, I have confidence that the experience I'm going to deliver for you is incredible. And if there are barriers, I want to lower those barriers because I know I'm willing to make that investment. I will take less money on that ticket now, knowing the long game, the loyalty game means I will more, orders of magnitude more, get that investment back if I can get you to stick around. Oh, Helen. All right, I'm going to move to the question side. That's a good one. That's a good question. I mean, Billy's probably going to have to help answer a little bit of that one, but that's a, do you see that one there, Billy, about collect data and share permissions?
Oh, that's good.
Okay, so we have our last few minutes here. And I want to make sure that if there were specific questions or topics, something that didn't resonate with, or something you'd like a little more insight on, that this is a chance for you to just ask it over the mic. You don't need to put this in chat. And also, you're all new to file for me in this particular session, and so I want to make sure that even though these are free, I don't have a really deep offer for you, but I can entice you into our session in a couple of weeks about metrics that matter. If any of the data stuff that we talked about early on was of interest to you, we're going to go much deeper in understanding what are the important metrics that we should care about. And another spoiler alert, response rate is one of them, one that I talked about. And there are other 5 or 6 metrics that we think are really important that organizations need to keep their eye on, not to overload you. But are there questions now about this session or anything that's come up?
I think for me, most of our offer's free, and it's important that it is. So in terms of that particular theatre that you were looking at, it might be that people didn't come back because the program didn't reflect what they were interested in, and there was something particularly quirky that year that they wanted to see, and then the program didn't reflect it after that. And I think applying these principles, we might be able to offer maybe some kind of discount in the cafe, or offers for people who give us quite detailed feedback.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Finding those single ticket buyers, what it was that actually triggered them not to come back, and helping them to be co-producers perhaps in the future.
Yeah, that's where that relationship can start. And you're exactly right. Whatever you have to offer, the important concept there is it's worth the investment to get that information so that you can make sure you are responding to patrons and constituencies in the way that you need to. And it's important that, look, our retention rate's never going to be 100%, right? But anything we can do to move it, I honestly, I rarely see anybody whose retention rates are even at or below 50%, right? So but anything we can do to lower that attrition rate is going to be so important to your mission and to the sustainability of the work that you're doing. And so it's worth putting the effort in to figure out how to go from even 75 to 63% attrition. Your organization is going to get that much stronger each time. Yeah, go ahead, Billy.
Kerry, in response to that, I think that yes, the program could be part of it, or their experience in terms of what they see. But actually, if you go somewhere and you have an amazing experience because one person came up to you and went, "We're really glad you're here. Are you having a good time today?" They're really welcoming, and that sort of sticks in your mind afterwards. And actually, that's the thing you remember more than what it was you saw on the stage or whatever. So I wouldn't discount the impact of something like that. It's definitely worth thinking about.
Okay.
Yeah, even if programming changes, they will be telling their friends and family about what a great experience they had. And even though whatever the next programming is may not be their cup of tea, there may be something that is in their circle, and it will come with a good recommendation. Yeah, Kat.
Unmute. Right. Hi. This has been really interesting for me, and there's some really salient points and some bits. Like in some situations, I don't think people appreciate us knowing who they are.
Right. Sure.
If we did know who they are, that'd be worry. But I'm looking at in the context of some of our volunteers, and so yeah, there's not the financial investment, but there's opportunities there, and how we can make offers in terms of opportunities, how we can make their experience with us positive so they want to keep being volunteers, and also our community engagements as well. And I was thinking of those steps to kind of being a patron, sitting on the board at the end of that sort of thing.
Right.
For us, it's more that they want to engage with us as police. The end goal could be more community intel, or that they report more crimes or that sort of thing, because they've had those positive engagements. They want to keep coming back to that engagement with the police. So it's
perfect.
Lovely.
You're exactly right.
Thank
Really
you.
nice work translating that across. Ultimately, we're in the relationship business, right? We're in the business of being in relationship with other human beings in our community, and we want to be in meaningful relationships with those people, right? In whatever form or shape that takes. But we know, as we know in our interpersonal relationships, it takes time, it takes work, it takes building trust and communication, right? It's the same way when we're talking about groups of folks that we're serving through our organizations. So that's a really good, it's a good approach. And I think these are, if we break it down into those chunks and understand how we are building that piece by piece and how we are putting focus and intentional effort towards cultivating that loyalty, it's not rocket science. We do it all the time personally. It's just how can we transfer that into the work that we do in community. One more? Okay, no more. Forget it. You're like,
Can we
Brad,
get
we're
a
at 2
copy of
minutes
the
over.
PowerPoint?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll send that around. I'll send that around afterwards. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Reagan, I saw you join us late, but I'm glad you're here, and we'll send this around, including a copy of the recording. So don't worry if there's context or things that you missed. If you want to watch the show, we'll have a digital recording of it as well. Okay, thank you all. Thanks so much for your participation and for taking some time out of your day to hang out with this funny talking Texan. And I hope I will see some of your faces at an upcoming session.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, y'all.